recording button. Okay. Yeah, very good. Good evening and welcome to this new webinar. It's the last one for this year. My name is Sonja Donauer-Dums, and on behalf of our association, I'm very happy to welcome you all. I'm very thrilled to share the stage today with three wonderful individuals in this last webinar. Once again, we will delve into the wisdom of nature, this time focusing on connecting the hemispheres of the northern and the southern part. Together with the team of Biomimicry South Africa, we will explore global rhythms today. While many webinars this year showcase specific technical applications of biomimicry, today's focus is more on illuminating the aspect of reconnecting with nature. Join me in welcoming Jane and Stefano, as well as my Biomimicry Switzerland partner, Michaela. Stefano and Jane, would you be so kind and introduce yourself quickly?
Thank you so much, Sonja, and hello everyone. It's lovely to be here with you this evening. So yeah, my name is Jane. I'm the co-director of Biomimicry South Africa. I have a background in systems engineering and spent many years in business management in the tech industry, but decided to move into the practice of biomimicry a few years ago when I wanted to really find a way to live more purposefully and to really have intentional impact in the world. And so that led me to biomimicry, and it's just been an absolutely amazing journey since then. My deepest passion now is really in the work of coming back into relationship with the natural world, deeply reconnecting, which we know is one of the seeds of biomimicry. And within the context of Biomimicry South Africa, our organization that Stefano co-directs with me, we have the aim of really creating the conditions for regenerative ways of being to emerge in the Southern African context. And so that's what a lot of our work and intention and energy goes towards. So yeah, that's me.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you so much. And Stefano, would you be so kind to introduce yourself also very quickly?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Stefano Semprini. My background's in mechatronic engineering, and then I worked in the mechanical design field and renewable energy. And before going on a little life side quest to figure out what other people are doing about all the things that are going wrong, I began my biomimicry learning journey with Claire Yenish and Biomimicry South Africa in about 2014. And then, long story short, ended up joining Jane as co-director of Biomimicry SA last year. And for me, the work of biomimicry is really in the area of social innovation, how we understand ourselves as part of nature, and how we try to create a world that works for all of life. So there's a lot more I could say, but I'll leave it there, keep it short and sweet, and looking forward to having some fun.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah, I will now pass the floor directly to you, Stefano, back. You will take us on this journey, which will be a very interactive one today, right?
Yes. Okay. So we are going to ask for some active participation. Lorenzo, nice to see you there. So I'm going to share my screen. And Sonja, if you will share the link to the first. Ciao. So what we want to do is we'd like to ask you two questions. And if Sonja puts the link in the chat, then you guys can see the link to also join to answer these questions. The first question is, do you cultivate a nature connection or reconnection practice? And you'll see the 4 different answers there. I think oh no, given there we go. Is that the link? Okay, the link is in the chat now.
I tried to paste it. It's not the link, but Michaela, did you use the first link? Or yeah. Okay, I'm sorry for the format.
No, it's fine. And let me just make double sure that it's the right link. Yeah, okay. So Well, we already have one response, so we know that worked. And I would suggest, why don't we also respond? Let's see.
Stefano, really quick, can you tell me a little bit about what you're envisioning for reconnection practice? And I noticed it said something, one of the options was, oh, I don't call it that. Is there a more specific or a description?
Well, I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant to give you more of a description, because I think that's exactly what we want to see is, is there something that you would call that or not call that? But is there something that you feel that has the effect of making you feel reconnected?
Okay.
And yeah, I'm going to open the same link, and maybe perhaps we also fill in the form. Okay, so if you can still see my screen, let's make this a little bit bigger. I'm also going to say at, and my answer there too. Responses. Okay, so 100% said yes, daily, weekly, a few times a month. Oh, and we have one, I don't know what reconnection is about. Okay, fair enough. And then for the second question, is your practice connected to the seasons? 60%, 66% say, oh no, we're in the wrong place. Say yes, particular moments in the year when I'm very aware of changing seasons. One respondent said no, and one said yes, always. Okay, interesting. What I'll say about this is, now that we've answered the question, why I resisted trying to answer the question with a definitive explanation, with the definition of what the reconnection practice is because I think this is where it might be the case that language starts to fail us, that it really just is about a feeling. And if the words are associated with the feeling, then that's good enough for it to be the definition. I think we all know what disconnection feels like, and so when something feels more like connection, we know it. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to open the floor and ask anyone else, just if you do feel that you have some words to describe, only one of us said we don't know what a reconnection practice is. So for everyone who said yes in one form or another to the first question, I'd love to hear a little bit about what it is for you.
I can go first. For me, reconnection practice is definitely going out in nature. I try to explain it a bit. I know that we are nature. I know that I'm part of nature, but reconnecting with nature is, I think it's more or less rooted into my childhood, and reconnecting with nature means to me going for a walk, going out. Sometimes it even means doing something for me, for my body, going to a yoga lesson or taking time for a specific thing I want to do. But as a first glimpse, reconnect with nature is also go outside the building and experience nature.
Quite similarly to you, to me, reconnection is connected to outside the house, outside my body. Even though, as you were saying, yoga or meditation or even taking photographs or whatever it is where you focus on something in particular can also be reconnecting to your breath or to sensing things around you, even inside a house. For me, it's very easy to reconnect every day because I live in a remote place. So I hear the sounds of the outside even when I'm inside. I can, see the sky, and as soon as I get out of my house, I'm immersed in nature. So I think the reconnection part is being conscious about it and looking at things with more focus. So focusing on something a little bit more than just, walking around.
I think for me it's the same. I go on walks a lot, but sometimes it's just to clear my head and then I don't focus at all. But sometimes I go outside and really focus on the things that are outside, and it's very two different types of walks to take.
Yeah, I must say, for me, it's about, as I mentioned a little earlier, this idea of actually coming back into a relationship, and I started realizing the difference when I when I move from just experiencing nature to actually having an intention of being in relationship, and not just because in biomimicry we talk a lot about emulating nature and what can we learn from her and all of these genius strategies. And then it became more about, okay, there's actually there's creativity here, there's consciousness, there's the intelligence in nature, and I want to be able to be in relationship with that, not just on the receiving end of of the functions that nature performs and the things that we can learn from it, but how do we be in dialogue and in relationship. And so, as you say, those walks can be different, and I was living in a place called Nature's Valley, beautiful, untouched nature, absolutely gorgeous. And then I moved to Cape Town, into an urban area, and seeking those opportunities to come into relationship became what I would have said more challenging at the time. But then I realized it was just different. Nature is literally all around. It doesn't matter where we are. We can engage, at these different levels. So for me, it's really coming into relationship and realizing that it can be absolutely any context. Just setting the intention for finding that.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, of course.
I'm very much aligned with what you guys said. And I also have the luxury of living really close by nature, and I just go almost daily, walking or running, and just when I do have a bit more time, just to try to find new species of plants or fungi, which is something that I'm really into at the moment, and finding new things and try to identify them. So to me, it's sort of like discovering new things that are just in my backyard, let's say, and then noticing even more the change of season, definitely.
Love it. Thank you, everyone. My reflection is that going to the same place, returning to the same place as often as possible, obviously increases our awareness and our ability to pay attention to the details of that particular place. So that's obviously one strategy for really noticing those differences. I was also reflecting that to the second question about is if the reconnection practice is connected to the seasons. I tend to be quite intentional about the solstices and the equinoxes. And less so about the day that apparently technically marks the beginning or end of a particular season. I find those to be more arbitrary, but knowing when, okay, this is the longest day of the year or this is the shortest day of the year, that's always feels very important to me. And and I guess, yeah, the equinoxes too. And then I have more to say, but I think let's move on to the next set of questions. Thank you, everyone, for your participation in those. Sonia or anyone really, would you mind pasting the link to the second set of questions in the chat? So I'll share my screen again. Apologies that it dropped away. My internet is not the most stable this evening. Okay, so it's in the chat. Yeah. Just gonna also pull that link up. Okay, and go ahead and start responding. So the first question is, what helps you to feel most connected at this time of year? And what do you do to keep the connection during the changing of the seasons? So this is the text box answer. So just perhaps add a answer. You can make it as short or as long as you'd like. Okay, we have 2 responses, 3 responses, including mine, I think. I'm gonna wait, there we go. All right, I'm gonna jump across to the responses here. And let's see what we have. What helps you feel most connected at this time of year? Going outside before it is dark. Yeah, well, it happens. I wonder if that's someone from the Northern Hemisphere who put that in, or from the down south. Walking barefoot outside and feeling the temperature and textures. I love that. Seeing the moon rise or set, that's mine. Walking on snow and hearing the creaking sound and identifying animal tracks. Calling friends, creating crafts out of things I find in the garden, wreath or candles. Wow, I really, really like that. Being quiet in a natural setting and listening, sensing. What is nature sharing with me? Keep going outside even if it's cold. Who gave the answer? Calling friends, creating crafts out of things I find in the garden.
I did.
I would love it if you'd say a little bit more about that. I think that's a really creative way to feel connected at this time of year.
Yes, so I am blessed enough to be in the biomimicry course right now and conceptualizing different projects. And I thought, what's something really fun that I could do quickly, that I could experiment with the things that I've learned? And so I started thinking about all the things that we do on Christmas time that are maybe made of plastic, or we throw them away when we're done using them. And so I thought, well, what kind of beautiful things could I make that can go back to the earth? So one of the things I got so excited about was making these orange candles. So you have the orange and you just have the skin of the orange. You take out the insides and then you put in candle wax. And so that's all it is. It's very simple, but it was so joyful to make them, and they're beautiful colored. They keep their color, actually. I don't know how long they last generally, but anyway, so yeah, so then I'm still investigating other projects, lanterns that I can put the candle in. Also, you can decorate the candles with like flowers or leaves that you've dried. And yeah, so I'm just experimenting with different ways to make natural, eco-friendly presents, basically, that don't cost so much, but have meaning because it's like you made it yourself, you know? So yeah.
Love it. Thank you. It reminds me about something that I found very inspiring in a video I watched about how art can help us to envision better futures, and to adopt circular economy practices and so on. And the point that the artist who was speaking made was that it's about, these practices are in part about creating space in the mind, so the mental construct of nature being a part of our reality, which of course has been exactly what has become less prevalent. And so I really love that this is exactly what you're doing. You're using your creativity and bringing it back into the indoor realm with the gifts. So thanks for sharing that. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on. What do you do to keep the connection during changing seasons? Notice the differences throughout the year. Yep. Walk barefoot outside every day of the year. That's I'm coming back to that. Go for long walks, look at the foliage, changing colors, and do it consciously. Anke, look at the foliage. Anke, I know that's Lorenzo. Who is walking barefoot outside every day of the year? Because I love being barefoot, but I don't even manage that.
I am.
Yeah.
Mainly because I'm lazy. Because I have to go outside to go to my compost, or to change my laundry, because I have to walk outside, and I just go barefoot. And my neighbor thinks I'm crazy, but it allows me to be conscious of what's going on temperature wise, and also, textures, and the snow is not the same I don't do it for hours, but I kind of like to start the day with just walking barefoot, if it's summer or winter, whatever. It just feels like, oh, today's a cold day, or today is wet, and today is windy, or whatever. It only takes a few seconds to connect you and to ground you as well. So I would say we should wear less shoes and less socks, and we would be more rooted, I guess.
I'm 100% with you there. When I was working in I wouldn't call it an office, but in a co-working space in Cape Town in 2015 through 2017, I was always without shoes. And that's how people knew me in the building. Some newcomers to the building would look at me funny, but I'd be at my desk barefoot and be running around the building barefoot because. All right. Would anybody else like to contribute anything to this question before we move on?
I think Lorenzo had his hand up for a second.
Oh, great. Go for it, Lorenzo.
And no, I just pressed the wrong number. But I like that, Michaela, you actually mentioned this walking barefoot in another call another time. So it's really cool that you bring it back again.
Cool. Well, with that, we're going to leave the web forms. There's one more that we'll do a little bit later. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand back over to Sonia and to Jane to take us through the next part.
Yeah, maybe Jane, you want to jump in right now and share the mirror board?
Yeah, okay. Let's see if I can find it. Bear with me. Hold on a second.
I put it in the chat if you want.
Yeah, there we go. I was on the all right, sorry guys, I'll be with you in a second. There. Okay, you see the screen? Okay. Excellent. Okay, so I mean, we have sort of, I suppose as a team, we started to explore a little bit more around what actually connects us, and the conversation, didn't it, kind of went in a number of different directions. We were looking at connectivity, we were looking at adaptation, and we were looking at what is happening in the Northern Hemisphere and what's happening in the South, and how are these things connected. And eventually we really came back to the idea from a biomimicry perspective of its operating conditions, and then really just fundamentally the elements that connect us, and how these elements really behave and move in different ways depending on the context. And we wanted to explore that a little bit further. And so Michaela, I know that you were really connected with, when we were having our initial conversations and exploring these ideas, you were really connected with this idea of how wind is this common thread that we found through a lot of our conversations. And you were really sort of inspired to share more about that. So I'd love to hand over to you on that one.
Yeah, so wind and air are, of course, common all around our planet. And I thought it was funny and interesting to see that wind can be a destructive force as well as a constructive force by spreading seeds and creating new conditions. We have this idea of wind very much in winter, because maybe we don't see other things in nature. The leaves are gone, or we can see the leaves fall. But as you were saying before we started this webinar, it's very windy in South Africa today, and it's summer. So I think it's very interesting to have it connected to seasons that are fall and winter for us. But we also of course have wind in the summer. And I really like wind erosion. And as it is an abiotic factor that has a very big impact on biotic factors through the dispersion of seeds and as well erosion of nutrients that then get carried away from where they are. So I wrote a little short story about the wind. So I will read it now, and then I will give you a couple ideas on how to reconnect with the air, the element of air. So bear with me. It's like a small page here. And since we're in the Alps, Sonia and I went for the Alpine, the mountain and the wind. So once upon a time, in the heart of the majestic Alps, there stood a proud and ancient mountain peak. It had witnessed the passage of countless seasons and the dance of myriad stars. Its craggy face bore the scars of time, and its snow-capped summit reached towards the heavens. One day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the wind, a playful and spirited wanderer, decided to pay the mountain a visit. The wind, with its invisible fingers, wove through the valleys and soared up to the towering heights. It greeted the mountain with a gentle rustle, whispering secrets carried from distant lands. "Dear mountain," the wind sang, "you've stood here for eons, witnessing the tales of yesteryears. But my friend, change is the only constant, and the future awaits with open arms." The mountain, proud and steadfast, replied, "I have weathered storms and cradled the snow, seen the rise and fall of civilizations. What more is there to come?" The wind, ever the sage, swirled around the mountain, carrying the fragrance of blossoms from faraway meadows. "Life is a tapestry, my friend, woven by the threads of moments. Embrace the ephemerality, for the beauty lies in the ever-changing panorama." Intrigued, the mountain asked, "But what of my past? Must I let it go?" The wind chuckled, causing the snowflakes to dance in midair. "Your past is etched in the stones, and your tales are sung by the rivers. Letting go doesn't erase the memories. It liberates you to dance with the winds of tomorrow." The mountain pondered these words as the wind continued its ballet around the peak. A realization dawned upon the ancient giant, like the first light of dawn kissing its summit. "I understand now," the mountain declared. "I shall stand tall, letting the winds of change sculpt my future, and I shall cherish each passing breeze as a reminder of the eternal dance of life." The wind, satisfied with the mountain's newfound wisdom, soared off into the night, promising to return with tales of adventures from distant realms. And so the mountain stood atop the Alps, a timeless guardian, embracing the winds of change with a heart full of confidence. The echoes of their whimsical conversation lingered in the valleys, becoming a folk tale shared by the rivers, whispered by the pines, and carried by the eternal winds that continue to paint the canvas of the Alps. What I like about this story is this idea of ever-existing change, and that change has to be nurtured by letting go of the past, and everything is a future in the past at the same time. So this is why I felt very connected to the wind. And I have a few air and wind reconnection practices to share with you. So what I did the other day was to go out with my phone and record the wind in a quiet place. Recording wind is kind of hard because you don't record the air. You record the air brushing against other elements. So it can be leaves, it can be branches, it can be cracking, it can be other things, but the wind makes no noise, just as the wind does not, you cannot take a picture of the wind. You only see the consequences of the wind. So you only see its sculpture. You don't see what it's made of. So I think it would be interesting, the same way we draw sound maps, which you also cannot see, is to draw wind or air maps. Where is the air warmer or colder, even inside your house? Do you feel drafts? Do you feel that it smells different in different places? Because as well as you cannot hear the wind, you cannot see it. So as we cannot do it visually or auditorily, auditorily, audially, I don't know. You can also draw or paint or express how the wind makes you feel, since you cannot draw it or you cannot take a picture of it. So I thought, how do you see it manifested in the mood board that I put together? You can see the leaning branches of trees. You can see cloud formations. You can see seed dispersal or pollen dispersal, or you can feel it in your hair, but you never grasp wind. And that's what I really like about it. It's ever changing, ever moving, and also a promise of ever-changing future. And if you want, I have a little plan of a very easy kite you can build from office supplies, which I will share with whoever is interested at the end of this webinar. It takes 5 minutes to build, and that's where you can see the manifestation of air and wind, if you want to take pictures of something that is less esoteric than clouds. So here's my part on wind and air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michaela. That is that piece that you wrote is just absolutely gorgeous. And I love what you mentioned about the fact that you can really see the sculpting of the wind, and as opposed to being able to really grasp it in itself. And I was thinking about that in relationship to water, which was the element that I've been exploring, and how it's in the relationship between the elements that we start to get a better understanding of how they move, how they behave, what their moods are on a particular day in a particular context, you know. And so yeah, that was really interesting for me. Thank you. So I did an exploration. I felt really connected to the element of water, and yeah, I mean, we understand life to be or water to be life-giving. It's something that is quite common. You know, we sort of associate water with the feminine, and it's connected to the moon and to the tides. And most of us have a very good idea of how important water is for this aspect of life. What was interesting to me is as I was doing some research, I was reminded of the fact that in almost all of our mythologies, there is a similar story of a flood, some type of flooding, major flooding event that comes to cleanse, and this is symbolic of water's power and its ability to take life as much as it is to create life. And so I was really interested in this kind of duality that was becoming apparent in this exploration of water and this life-giving force being equally as able to take it, and then exploring how creative water is, you know, and it like carves through the earth, it creates landscapes, it's constantly changing into different forms and adapting to the context of the time. And so this for me was really interesting in this ultimate expression of the cycles of life, you know, the cycles of life, and then changing and creating and adapting and moving into expressions of oneself. And this was all symbology, but it just for me was so interesting, and then coming all the way back to closing a cycle off. And then I was looking at it from the perspective not just of the different states that you find water in, solid, liquid, gas. They found a fourth phase of water now, but also just the way it expresses itself. You know, there's the turbulence of the wave crashing, and there's the serenity and the peacefulness of, you know, a lake in a meadow. The solidity of ice, the crunchiness of snow, to the flow and the bubble of a stream, like these different ways of expressing oneself. The wave can be just quite taken with this idea that water is the ultimate expression of adaptability, you know, and really being able to change one's way of being in order to better work with and be in harmony with the current context. And our context is constantly changing. We see this through the weather patterns and the seasons. And so this was, to me, really quite inspiring. So yeah, I think that was something that I really enjoyed exploring. The other aspect that I really found quite interesting was the idea that all of our water stays within our atmosphere. So, and I remember it was actually, interestingly enough, I had this experience at one of my first biomimicry immersions with Claire, our mentor, Claire Yenish. And there was a lovely lady who works a lot with water, and she did a meditation with us, and she came and she put a drop of water in each of our hands, and we sat with this one single drop of water. And then we were invited to, and we were actually guided through this exploration of where that single drop of water had been, and the billions of cycles that it's done, and how many experiences that drop of water had been part of a crashing wave. It had been, in the bloodstream of a whale. It had been, in a cloud above Everest. It had all of these transmutations and had all of these experiences, and just continued to cycle and to cycle. And so, yeah, that for me was a really, really beautiful experience to sit and contemplate that. And I think for me, I would like to invite you all to, at a time that's appropriate, to actually be with water, and whether it's a drop of water or a body of water, and really contemplate all the different cycles that this water has been through, and how it adapts to these various different contexts. Mm-hmm. Sonia, I know that you were really keen on doing an exploration of fire.
Yeah, don't you read up your tale?
Yes, thank you. I was so caught up in remembering that experience that I had. So yes, I do have a tale. It's not a tale that I've written. This is the tale of the rainbow, and it's really an indigenous story. It's one that I found the essence of the story, but all of these folk tales were really shared, orally, and passed down from generation to generation. So this is just a sort of retelling of the tale. This is not local specifically to the fynbos biome, but it's local to Southern Africa. In the arid lands of the Kalahari, where water is as precious as life itself, the Sand people spoke of the rainbow, a mystical creature that embodied the essence of rain and fertility. The rainbow was not just an animal, it was a sacred being, deeply connected to the spirits of the ancestors and the forces of nature. The Sand believed that the rainbow lived in the heavens, roaming the skies and bringing rain to the earth. It was said that when the rainbow moved, its hooves struck the clouds, causing them to release their life-giving waters. The rumble of thunder was the sound of the rainbow moving through the skies, and the lightning was the reflection of its mighty horns. To the Sand, the rainbow was also a guardian of the water sources, the rivers, springs, and wells. It was said that without the blessing of the rainbow, the land would turn barren, the wells would dry up, and drought would grip the earth. Hunting the rainbow was considered a sacred act, undertaken not for physical nourishment, but to maintain the balance of nature and to ensure the continuity of the rains. The hunters would perform rituals and dances to honor the rainbow, asking for its blessings and for the rains to come. These rituals were as much a part of the hunt as the actual tracking and pursuit of the animal. The tale of the rainbow teaches the importance of living in harmony with nature and respecting the natural cycles. It underscores the belief that humans are an integral part of the natural world, interconnected with all living beings and the elements. This story, rich in symbolism and spiritual significance, reflects the deep connection of the Sand people with the environment and their profound understanding of the delicate balance that sustains life in the harsh landscape of the Kalahari. I also have some reconnection practices that I can share with you. Firstly, I would, as I said, invite you to take a drop of water and really just contemplate and meditate on all the different experiences that those molecules have had. It can really be quite a profound experience. Another idea is playing with water and art. You know, you can get really cheap watercolor paints from most arts and crafts shops, and really just bringing water into the actual creative process is really fun, and it's really connecting. I've got a list in a Word document of a number of other practices that you can do to reconnect with water, which I'll share with you at the end as well.
Very nice. Then it's my turn now, Jane. Would you move a bit to the fire and light part? Yeah. Yeah, as the year comes to a close, along with the general hustle and bustle of the holiday season, many people also desire inner reflection and tranquility. Many of our traditions are dedicated to this, and once again show how interconnected we are. Today, I would like to share a few thoughts with you on the element of fire and the theme of light. As with many things, the dose makes the poison, and the interplay of all elements is necessary to enable life. Especially in winter here in the Northern Hemisphere, and particularly here in the Alpine region, we feel how fundamental fire is for us. Winter solstice is approaching soon, exactly on December 22nd. In the Alpine region, including Austria, the winter solstice is traditionally celebrated with various customs and rituals. These traditions often have deep-rooted connections to nature, community, and the agricultural calendar. Several important traditions include bonfires and light celebrations, symbolic activities like creating wreaths or other crafts, feasting and sharing of food, where the community comes together and enjoys a festive atmosphere. For example, on Christmas markets, music also plays a very vital role. It's important to note that specific customs can vary widely from the Alpine region to another and from one community to the next. Many of these traditions have been passed down through many generations. And the winter solstice marks the shortest day and longest night of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, while the specific date of December 13, which is today, Santa Lucia's Day, does not align precisely with the solstice. It could still be significant. December 13 is celebrated mostly in parts of Scandinavia as Santa Lucia's Day. This day is associated with light and the return of longer days after the darkness of winter. It involves processions, candlelight, and the crowning of a Lucia bride, symbolizing hope and the triumph of light over darkness. When we connect the events around December 13 to the upcoming solstice, you might find a thematic thread of transitioning from darkness to light, a motif in many winter celebrations across different cultures. The connection to biomimicry in these solstice traditions lies in the harmonious relationship between communities and nature, reflecting a deep understanding of the natural cycles and the significance of light. In essence, these traditions showcase a profound appreciation for the environment and an acknowledgement of the interconnectedness between humanity and the natural world. In the Alpine region, particularly in Austria, the use of fire and light in winter traditions is deeply symbolic and carries cultural significance. A few aspects related to fire and light during the winter season you can see in my pictures. Many households in Austria create Advent wreaths, often featuring 4 candles, one for each Sunday that leads up to Christmas. We also have Krampus processions with participants that carry torches or lanterns. The use of fire adds an element of both the warmth and the mystique of these events. Yeah, we're also very proud of our Christmas markets, and the markets create a magical atmosphere with fire pits for warmth and stalls illuminated with lights, giving a sense of comfort during the cold winter nights. Yeah, and while not explicitly tied to the solstice, community gatherings and celebrations around mid-December often involve the lighting of bonfires, especially in the mountain areas. These fires symbolize the triumph of light over darkness and are a way to usher the changing season. In summary, the use of fire and light in Alpine winter traditions serves as a metaphorical means to dispel the darkness, instill hope, and create the warm and inviting atmosphere during the cold winter months. These traditions often emphasize community sharing and the symbolic transition from darkness to light. And as I'm not a very tale person, I was looking for a poem which I could read out to you. But then I asked my friend ChatGPT if he has a suggestion for me, and he proudly wrote one for me. And so ChatGPT wrote, "As embers glow, shadows take flight, illuminating the solstice night, a dance with darkness, a celestial sight. In nature's arms, we find our light." I found it really funny that Chat came up with a poem. I asked him who wrote it, and he proudly answered, "Oh, I did it for you." So that was my AI contribution for this webinar. And if you'd like, I could share later my favorite recipe for a wonderful warm drink after a long walk, which is with cinnamon and star anise and apple juice and all that.
Thank you so much. Okay. So now you are going to talk to us about the element of earth and read us a beautiful story that you've written.
Yes. Can you hear me okay? My connection's been doing all kinds of unstable things. You can? Okay. If you want to move across there on the, yeah, there we go. I'm not going to say much about Earth, just because time is running fast. What I will say is that for me, this was really a contemplation of many things. It was a contemplation of healthy soils and the gut microbiome and all the things we're learning these days about that. It was a contemplation of how the other elements shape the earth. The picture in the top left is of a place in an area of South Africa called the Tankwa Karoo, and that piece of land that's seen from Google Maps is an area which is a piece of land which feels sacred to me. It's the farm, a family farm of a friend of mine, and I spent a lot of time there, and it's where I have found my most profound reconnection, that and the top of Table Mountain. And so whenever I look at it, for a long time that picture was my desktop background. Whenever I look at it, I just marvel at how the water and the wind and the fire has shaped that landscape. Of course, when we talk about the earth, we can't ignore the fact that the way that we have ravished the earth for resources and pillaged, really. But in the center of the image is a before and after shot of the Loess Plateau, which some of you might know as being it was a regeneration project done in I believe the 1980s and 1990s, which the ecologist John D. Liu documented. And it was the region it's in was the breadbasket of China for centuries, and it was had very deep soils, but it was completely denuded by unwise farming practices. And then they did a pilot project in well, I think it's in the 1980s. I stand corrected, might be have been a little bit earlier, a little bit later. But the pilot project was at Belgium, and they basically set about regenerating the landscape. And the picture in the middle there, the one on the right, is what it has been transformed to. And so for me, that's the hopeful message about regeneration and the earth. And of course, earth also just refers to this globe that we live on, this giant chunk of rock hurtling through space. So that's what I'll say about that for now. And I'm going to read you a story that I wrote. I wrote this story during my biomimicry practitioners program when I was exploring story as a way of well, what I did is I did little mini biomimicry design spirals, and I went and learned something about a particular creature and found a biological strategy and saw what would it take to try and write that into a story. So my story might be a little bit clunky, but here we go. And it's very much focused on our summer Southern Hemisphere atmosphere. So I welcome you to close your eyes and just have a listen. My story is entitled "Remembering Mjusi's Tail," and Mjusi is just the word for lizard in Swahili, and tail is you can choose. It's either spelled T-A-L-E or T-A-I-L. Okay. The lizard named Mjusi sat squat under the simmering heat of the African sun, some way up the steep precipices of his mountainside home. His reptilian skin reflected a shimmering, scaled rainbow of colors. Resplendent he was, little Mjusi. Mjusi was really hungry, and more than a little tired of the repeated mate rejections over the last several weeks. Regrowing a tail was a small cost to pay for surviving that life-threatening attack. That hawk came out of nowhere. I really believed I'd see an attack like that coming. I'm so lucky. Had that hawk's grasp come within a pinch more accuracy, that would have been the end. I wiled that wound, that snap of my, no, I can't deal with slipping into that recollection right now, Mjusi thought. As he refocused his wandering mind, bringing all of his attention to the surroundings again, he sensed before seeing and knew it. His afternoon snack had slipped away, escaping. Another meal missed because he was still not over the impact of that attack and the loss he was left with. He hopped a few crags sunward, feeling the warmer sides of the rocks beneath his claws. That heat was oh so enjoyable. A hint more, and it would be like having, it would likely have felt like his flesh was burning. But as it was, it radiated up through his legs, reaching all over, comforting his bones with its energy. He wondered if the rocks enjoyed this afternoon summer sun as much as he did. Did they feel its invigorating power as he did? This time, he allowed himself the indulgence of distracting thoughts. After all, the meal was gone already. He may as well have taken some time remembering what happened. He had no clue what else to do to relieve himself of this emotional scar. If he kept missing meals over it, he was going to have trouble regrowing a tail. Remembering that moment now, Mjusi could almost feel the snap of the willing woundedness, that moment when his body chose to allow his tail to be wrenched off as the hawk seized hold and prepared to take flight. It still felt strange to Mjusi, how he could feel like he had made some kind of instinctual and yet also intentional decision about losing his tail. It was like breathing, both conscious and not. It was also not at all like breathing. While breathing was always happening, having his tail ripped free was somehow shocking in ways he could never have expected, even if he had thought to try and prepare himself for it. He saw now how being physically prepared for it was not the same thing as being equipped to heal from the emotional trauma. Could Mjusi learn to prepare? Faster than thought, Mjusi was on it and snapping up a fly that had landed a little too close. Thankfully, Mjusi's instincts could be relied upon for a meal, and with a little meal, growth and healing would follow. The fly was only a little crunchy and tasted like nothing else Mjusi could think of. It was like the color brown of tastes, he thought. What something tasted like when all the real flavors were smushed together into one. The lack of a real crunchiness was also underwhelming to Mjusi. Other insects he liked to eat had carapaces that crunched satisfyingly, no matter the flavor. The whistling whine of the cicadas, all perched in the hardy bushes clinging to the crags around Mjusi, were becoming irksome. It seemed to Mjusi like their screeching congressional cries, made by the males to attract their fairer counterparts, were made in complaint, and therefore all he needed to know. Those guys aren't living in the right place. Mjusi knew he was having these thoughts out of spite. He didn't think much of the cicadas. For all the noise they made, Mjusi never seemed to be able to track them down, to make a meal of them. It seemed unfair that they could affront his hearing so, and he couldn't even get a meal for his suffering. Anyway, they'd quiet down soon. Mjusi could see the storm clouds gathering, heavy with moisture as they swooped northward, low over the southern plains. Time to find the choice crag and wait out the rain. The rocks would hold their heat yet, so Mjusi was not concerned about being cold. By the time Mjusi had hopped and danced his way to the spot he had in mind, the rain was upon him. The cicadas were silent, cooled by the watery wetness that Mjusi had hoped to avoid. The smell of rain on rocks was a pleasure, though. It smelled like flowers he'd once found where the busy bees were hived, those ones with the pinkish yellow blossoms. Wait, no. Sorry, children. I've ruined the end of the story. My memory is not what it was. Yes, yes, of course, rain on rocks does not smell like flowers. Thank you. I know. You want to hear the rest? But not today, said the old, wrinkled village keeper of the stories apologetically, and gave a hiccuping giggle that set the gathered youth laughing along. The end of the story forgotten by all. Can you at least tell us what it means? Asked the littlest of the lot. Huh? Oh, yes, well, the meaning. Of course. You see, children, Mjusi symbolizes our, well, of course, it's that, I've lost it. Again, the keeper lost himself to laughter. There wasn't much else to do but laugh at the inevitability of aging. Unreliable memory was a small price to pay for a full life and laughter that came easy still. And the stories had been kept alive, passed on as they were to the keeper's successor. What good is a moral anyway? The stories just are, and it is up to us to make meaning of them, the keepers pronounced loftily. He went on, yes. Besides, I think I'm most used to you now as a source of entertainment. Eh? Let's go make fun of your parents. What do you say? I'll pretend to start one of the stories, and I'll pretend to become forgetful by the second or third passage, and they will fret at how unreliable I am, and we'll all have a good giggle. The keeper encouraged his audience. With this, the children jumped up, gathered around to support the old keeper of the stories, their unreliable narrator, and made their way over to where the adults were busying themselves with the evening meal. So there you go.
Thank you so
My
much,
ridiculous story.
Stefano. Time is moving so fast.
Yeah, it has.
Jane, do you want to tell our people where and how they can get our tips and where we can gather them from then? And then we will wrap up. So please go ahead.
Stephanie, that was really beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, so we want to put together a little sort of reconnection hamper, gift hamper we want to collect. We've each collected a few songs and recipes and the stories that have been read today and the poems and what have you. And we thought, and obviously there are a little bit of a list of other reconnection activities as well. And so we thought we could put this into a bit of a hamper and perhaps take any of the ideas that you might be able to contribute to this as well. So you can either send, maybe we can put this in the chat. I'll put my email address. So you can either add any sort of reconnection ideas here in the chat and we can put them into the hamper, or you can email me and I'll add that now. Here we go. Jane at biomimicryprojects.com. And yeah, and then we'll include that and we will share it out with anybody who, well, everyone who's here today, but also anyone who watches the recording and would like to receive the hamper as well.
Thank you, Jane. So yes, please get in touch with us if you would like to get our reconnection tips and additional content on the elements and how we can reconnect to them. Thank you very much to Jane, to Stefano, to Sonia, as of course, to the audience, and we will see you in 2024. And we are very excited to see you next year. And as we are good alpine organisms, we will start hibernating until next year. And we're happy to see you again in 2024. Thanks very much to everyone and have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.